Why, hello there. Jacob here. And tonight, well, first off, cheers. Yeah. That right there was for Kirill Kaprizov, who officially took home the Calder. In other words, Rookie of the Year in the NHL, which pretty much anyone who watched more than 5 minutes of Minnesota Wild hockey could tell you what's going to probably happen. And yeah, excuse me, but I don't know if you noticed this, but it's kind of been hot around here the last, month and a half. I mean, I will say this real quick, though, before I get more into my thoughts with the Calder Cup winner, but it's been hotter than you-know-what around the upper Midwest around here. I mean, we're pretty much been going on a record stretch for temps in the 90s, so... And also with me watching a little bit of the NBA Finals, I figure I'd go ahead and throw out my full fit of the 19 or 2019-2020 Minnesota Timberwolves City Edition stuff, including the shorts, jersey, hat, and all that stuff, because I really don't have anything like warm weather for the Minnesota Wild. But anyway, back to what I was mentioning earlier here. The Minnesota Wild's Kirill Kaprizov has officially taken home the Calder Trophy. So yeah, rightfully so. I mean, Kirill Kaprizov basically wheeled us to, just literally from game one, that game-winning overtime goal in LA that really sort of set the chain reaction off to us making it to the playoffs and then taking Vegas to 7 games, which I think a lot of Wild fans will agree was actually pretty nice to see, all things considered, because, well, the Wild coming into this season before Kaprizov actually officially signed with the Wild, well, we kind of all know how last season ended before this season, so... But yeah, again, congratulations to Kirill Kaprizov on officially taking home the Calder Trophy, which he was pretty much the odds-on favorite most of this year, if not... Yeah, pretty much most of this year, if not all the season so far, but, yeah, I mean, all things considered, the Wild have a bright, bright future ahead of them, and, yeah, I mean, be interesting to see what they do with the draft this year, as well as free agency and all that stuff. And like I say, if any big-name free agents happen, I'll be sure to key you in. And then also, while I'm here, I thought I'd quick, before we go into training camp here, there's a couple of things I'm curious to see with the Minnesota Vikings. So, first things first, with the Vikings, probably the biggest thing I'm curious to see about is the kicking game, special teams and all that stuff, because, well, I don't think it takes a genius to know that the Vikings have been severely lacking in that department over the last 2 seasons, I'd say. Yeah, as well as, who's going to basically be opposite of Daniil Hunter for the, pass rush game. Because I think our defensive tackles are good. And like I say, with all the additions on our secondary, this has a very, very real chance of becoming maybe a 2017 team. If not, maybe even a little bit prior to that. But again, I always hate comparing teams just because, well, let's just say that rarely does that stuff ever work. Or, I always hate putting expectations on teams just because, again, well, who knows? But yeah, those are kind of a couple of things I'm looking forward to seeing there with moving forward. And then I figured, yeah, why not? Let's go ahead and talk about the other two teams here. The Twins this season have been kind of, well, yeah. So, however, though, they are on a winning streak, and I know they've had some injury history, but let's see here. Like I say, I know that the Twins, I should say, recently have had a few of their games being postponed and switched around just because, well, it's been an interesting year to say the least, weather-wise and all that stuff. And like I said, even earlier this year, too, it's just like the West Coast, like especially the upper Northwest, I mean, they're having their all-time hottest weather ever recorded. And, but again, though, it's, yeah, I mean, especially if you're not used to this type of weather, yeah, it can definitely throw you for a loop. I will say that. So, yeah, I mean, all things considered, it's been one heck of a ride. So, and also, as I'm recording this, it's currently 2-1 Twins in the bottom of the third. No outs. So, and then last but not least, you know, I don't really do a lot of Timberwolves news on here just because, again, I'm not the biggest NBA guy, but figure I might as well, you know, talk about it here. Is A-Rod purchasing the Minnesota Timberwolves as, well, majority owner and all that stuff. So, does that spell the end of the Timberwolves being in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area? I don't know. I mean, again, not necessarily the biggest NBA fan or even the biggest Timberwolves fan, but I do follow them. Just because, again, you know, Minnesota sports. But, yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see. I hope they stay just because, well, you know, in the area where Minnesota is, you know, again, not being the biggest area in the world, you know, it's kind of nice having all four major sports and all that stuff, so. But yeah, I mean, I just figured I'd quick jump on here and kind of do, for all intents and purposes, not just, you know, Kirill Kaprizov officially winning the Calder, which pretty much everyone who's watched a lot of hockey this year would agree with, maybe other than, you know, Dallas fans, or, I mean, heck, I'm surprised Tim Stützle wasn't mentioned as one of the finalists, because I know his name was up there too with the Ottawa Senators, especially with Ottawa kind of coming in their own at the end there. But yeah, and again, once the training camp kind of gets closer and all that stuff with the Minnesota Vikings, you know, stay tuned because, again, that'll be interesting to kind of follow them going into preseason and then eventually the regular season, as well as, of course, following a little bit of Twins and, you know, Timberwolves stuff, just because, again, relevant to the area and all that stuff. So, yeah, I mean, that pretty much wraps this up. Again, congrats to Kirill Kaprizov on winning the Rookie of the Year for the NHL, which is never easy to do. I mean, don't get me wrong, you know. Kirill Kaprizov is a special talent, so, I mean, for the Wild, it'll be priority number one to try to keep him, as well as a lot of the younger core, so, yeah. And then, of course, the Vikings, you know, moving into that, now that, you know, the offseason and all that stuff, and plus, will Aaron Rodgers opt out of the 2021 season? Because if that happens, well, let's just say the NFC North became just that much more wide open. And when I mean this much, I mean this much. So, yeah, so. Yeah, I mean, that pretty much wraps this video up. So, until we meet again, this is Jacob. Have a safe 4th of July weekend. Have a safe day, and we'll talk at you later.